Barry, today is August 13th, 2024.
Time flies.
It does. It is the ninth of Av in the year on the Hebrew calendar of 5784. And I would like to give a word today,
Okay.
one that you probably will not see on YouTube. You will not see the armchair prophets and thrill seekers. But today is a day I believe is a turning point. We've turned the corner. I got up this morning. I looked at the news, the typical news I do from America, and specifically from Israel. And I saw that there were 800 Jews that had gone up on the Temple Mount on this,
Wow.
the ninth of Av.
I didn't see that. 800.
800. I then looked and there was a video, a short 2-minute video of a group that had begun to sing the Hatikvah
Oh,
on the Temple Mount. They were carrying Israel flags. They were being pushed back a little bit gently by the IDF as they were escorted off of the Temple Mount. You know the gate there. We've walked through there together. But I walked into Kathy's office and I said, today is a turning point. Over 1950 years ago, the second temple was destroyed. On this day, the first was destroyed. On this day, 10 spies came out of Canaan with a bad report.
yeah.
On this day, the Inquisition, pogroms, part of the Holocaust, various things are tied to this day. But on this day, I believe there's a turning point of something that our mutual friend Hanok Young has been a part of for a while, High on the Har. And I said this in a meeting not long ago, Barry, when I was with him, that I believe that what he is involved in, him and others, is maybe the most prophetic event of our lifetime. And for the most part, most people are missing totally.
Yeah.
Your thoughts. You watch that video later and tell me if it just doesn't bring you to tears.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. I've had two occasions to be up on the Temple Mount. And you're standing in this large plaza. It's much larger than what one might imagine. You see the standard picture is the Dome of the Rock, and you think, okay, that's all that's up there. No, well, there's much more, and it's a lot of open area. I've gone to the backside of the what's called the Eastern Gate,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, it's sealed up, but there's just a bunch of overgrowth and debris down on the backside of that. It's not like it's on the other side of the Temple Mountain side that it's a paved work running up to any particular location.
Yeah.
I walked by the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That's different than the Dome of the Rock. It's a different place. And for all of the esteem and holiness that has been ascribed to that, I saw litter on the ground. I saw their prayer books scattered all over the place on the ground. I saw a very casual attitude.
Now you're talking about the Islamic prayer books. We're not talking about Israeli
Yes,
prayer books. Yeah.
yes, these are Islamic prayer books, paraphernalia. It was very ill kept. Junk in the very far back right-hand corner of the area of the plateau up
Mm-hmm.
there. Just junk piled up in a corner. Kids playing soccer. I watched it. I saw kids playing soccer up there as if, this is just a field. This is the most set apart place on the face of the earth. And it's desecrated, it's treated with contempt until until those who have a passion for it began to walk up, and immediately the atmosphere changes.
Yeah.
It's as if the hand of Yah himself cups over and guards them as they move in and around. And I 800, uh, I can't wait to see that. But there will one day, Mike, be thousands upon thousands who will stand with us on that plateau.
Mhm.
All of the other edifices and buildings will be gone. The king's house will be erected in a glorious fashion, and we will come and we will hear the Torah being taught from Jerusalem.
You talk about a day that is prophesied in Zechariah that all nations shall come for the feast of Sukkot. You talk about the verse of Isaiah 56:7. My
Isaiah 2.
father's my father's house will be a house of prayer for all nations. The psalmist wrote about zeal for your house has consumed me. Yeshua, the as he was cleansing the Temple Mount, not from not because the temple was bad, but because of what had been done.
Yes.
Religion had overtaken.
Yes.
And the disciples remembered those words of the psalmist: zeal for your house has consumed me. Could we be living in a day, hold on, Barry? Yeah, hold on. Yeah, talk to me, people. Could we be living in a day in which once again the Almighty Himself is saying, "Zeal for your house has consumed me."
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. I think
We had to cut out there for a second. I had an important phone call with an exterminator, so you don't want to drop those. So Barry, I can't remember where I was, where you were.
you were sitting right there looking like this, Mike.
Oh, okay. Was they saying anything important?
We were talking about the
Oh, the
future
zeal for
aspect.
the house. So
Yeah,
have we entered into a day, and the if we could say something good is coming out of October 7th, which is a stretch, I know,
a huge stretch, but yeah, I
huge
understand the
stretch,
connection.
but can it be possibly the good that will come is, we you pray this, I pray this, may Yah arise and his enemies be scattered.
Absolutely.
May this be a day that he arises and zeal for his house not only consumes him, but also begins to consume us.
Mike, since October 7th, and maybe this can help us segue over into an area that we need to go to, there has been a consistent sifting of nations and of minds and hearts of individuals and groups. Um, Somehow, October 7th, the horror of those lives taken and brutally so um, has left people with an opinion of, well, the Jews in the land were sinning and they deserved it.
Yeah.
This is the judgment of Elohim upon his own people. And therefore, we shouldn't support them and we should support the poor Palestinians, quote unquote, that are suffering the wrath of the IDF unnecessarily. Um, they don't have to be going this far. They don't have to go into the entire land. They're killing women and children, and we've talked about these things.
Yeah. We discussed that last week. Yeah.
Um, so there is an understanding, Mike, that a sifting is taking place, and Yah is revealing the true hearts of those who are for the land and for His people, and those who are for other things, other ideas. and they would justify themselves by whatever interpretations that they draw from quote unquote the New Testament.
Yeah.
There has been evidently some version of understanding that, well, what Paul said, what Yeshua said, what is written there helps us understand there's been a change of the order, and therefore the Jews, well, they just need to get on board or they're going to get run over.
Well, this is about, there's a lot of talk these days about putting people in groups and how, that shouldn't be done. But the people that talk about don't not doing it, do it all the time. The stigmatisms, okay? So let's put
Labels.
all the people of this race into this group over here. And of course, they like these foods and they do these things. And then there's this group over here and there's a group over here. But when you start putting people in groups, you miss the individual and you miss the benefits of knowing the individual. This has happened. And this what I now, again, to go from last week's program, I no longer use the term anti-Semitism.
Mm,
That's deleted from my vocabulary. Okay. The term is Jew hatred. Now, in our day, there are those who are supporting Israel, the Jewish people, wholeheartedly with everything that they can. I proudly stand in that crowd. There are those on the other side that are Jew haters.
mhm,
Report came in to me once again. There were people that did not come to some of Hanok's presentations. Why? Because he's a Jew. Had no idea what he believed. Nothing. They did not show up. Stated reason: he is a Jew. I'll stop right there. But then there's the other group, those that are sitting on the fence. This is not a time for fence sitters. And I believe that what is happening in our day is the Almighty is saying, to quote Josh Waller's song, there's a line in the sand. Choose. I just read the words of Elijah a couple of days ago in the book of Kings. Choose this day. Choose which way you're going to go. Stop hopping between the two.
mm.
If you hop over a fence long enough, one of these times you're going to miss.
Ow.
Yeah. The words of Joshua: choose who you're going to serve. Let me tell you, if today people are standing, and we're gonna maybe unpack this over a couple of weeks. This does the quote unquote New Testament. Has the New Testament been used for the agenda of Jew hatred? Let me read. If I could take 45 seconds. Last week I read the words of the golden mouthed. I think it's fool's gold, but that's my own interpretation. Let me read you the words of a man who lived in the 1500s. His name is Martin Luther. To quote from the book on the Jews and their lies. What then shall we Christians do with this damned, rejected race of Jews? Since they live among us and we know about their lying and blasphemy and cursing, we cannot tolerate them if we do not wish to share in their lies, curses, and blasphemy. In this way, we cannot quench the unquenchable fire of divine rage nor convert the Jews. We must prayerfully and reverentially practice a merciful severity. Perhaps we may save a few from the fire and flames of hell. We must not seek vengeance. They are surely being punished 1,000 times more than we wish them. Let me give you an honest advice. First, their synagogue should be set on fire, and whatever does not burn up should be covered or spread over with dirt, so that no one may ever be able to see a cinder or stone of it. And this ought to be done for the honor of God and of Christianity, in order that God may see that we are Christians and that we are not willingly tolerated or approved of such public lying, cursing, and blaspheming of his Son and his Christians. Secondly, their homes should likewise be broken down and destroyed, for they perpetuate the same things there that they do in their synagogues. For this reason, they ought to be put under one roof or in a stable like gypsies, in order that they may realize that they are not masters of our land as they boast, but miserable captives as they complain of incessantly for God or wailing. May the kindred of Christ burn in hell, and they're rightfully served.
Kindred of Christ burn
in hell, and they are rightfully served. The kindred of Christ burn in hell. This is the quote. I just read it right there. I read it right from there. So I ask people a question. You can't be neutral in this. The Almighty is no longer, I don't speak for him. My apologies if I sounded like I was about to, but I believe this with everything that I am, that he will no longer tolerate indifference. We are living in a day in which people are going to have to make a decision. The quote that Hanok was given by someone, our congregation stands with Israel. We don't do anything about it, but we stand with Israel. That type of an attitude will no longer be tolerated. At least I pray so.
How can you stand and do nothing? I mean,
it's you're kind of a legend in your own mind.
To justify, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of days, to justify the idea that somehow from Matthew to Revelation gives us a different version of our Creator and a different what's the word I'm looking at? A different means of operation. We have to believe that there was some kind of fundamental shift that took place when the last words of Malachi were recorded and the last annals of the kings were written down. And that when Matthew took pen in hand, or however it was, that heaven said, okay, shift gears, reorder, realign, a new day has come, things are different now, and the covenant that was has been handed over to a different people.
Replacement theology.
Supersessionism, whatever you want to call it. Replacement theology is just another tenet of hatred of Jews. They are vitally connected. You cannot justify the idea that anyone, any system, any group, any denomination, any belief system has replaced Yah's eternal and forever covenant with Israel, the Jews included, with anything. You cannot believe that that took place, that he has replaced and reneged on that covenant with Israel and chosen a different people without hating the previous covenant people. That's what has happened. But let me ask a question. If Yah changed his mind one time, why is it that we believe that he won't change his mind in the future? And that he has come to the Goyim, to the Gentiles, the nations of the earth, and said, what I gave to Israel, they failed in it. I'm going to give it to you. Hark, think about this. Have we walked it out so perfectly? Have we not made the same mistakes as Israel made in their past so that he would look at us and say, you blew it too. I'm going to give it back to the first group. If he changed his mind once, Mike, there's nothing that we can absolutely count on that he won't change his mind again. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, but Barry, when we were living in our adultery and our paganism and all of those things, it wasn't the same as it was with the Jews because see, they were
They're
doing it
Jews.
out of all of this hardness and of heart and stiff neck, and we were just doing it because of ignorance. And when we repented, I mean, we're like his little perfect angels. You just don't get it, man.
Like we have continued to walk in perfection. Really?
Yeah.
Have you taken a good look at what passes as the quote unquote body of Messiah? Not just in the United States, the world over.
Oh,
Yes, there are faithful believers. Yes, there are
yeah.
people who walk righteously, and there are perhaps millions of them. But the face of what is called churchdom or Christianity today, that people would say has replaced the covenant of Israel, we are marred by scandal. We have leaders of huge congregations that are stepping down because of failures. There are incredibly errant doctrines that are being propagated and turning lives into more of a psychological self-help arena than the actual true word of Yah. We have, I'll stop, but nonetheless, Mike, you cannot, you cannot say, well, when he said forever or everlasting covenant, he meant something else. The reality is, and I believe I can back this up anywhere you want to go. The reality is, when you accept Messiah, not born or raised in a Hebrew or Jewish understanding whatsoever, you are 100% Gentile. When you accept Messiah, you stop living and being a Gentile. You have
Yeah.
just been adopted into the Messiah's family. You have just become a part of his people. So there are, in all reality, there are no, if you want to get technical here, there are no redeemed Gentiles who remain Gentiles. You have been adopted into the family of Messiah, grafted into the olive tree. You are now a part of covenant Israel. And so that means that everything that was written to Israel is now written to you. But I don't
You
know
know,
about all that stuff in the Old Testament. Well, that's why he's given us time and space to learn. And that's what the Torah cycle is all about, is to teach us and help us to understand. Well, I remember when we were taking in members to the church when I was a kid.
mhm.
Somebody would stand up and they would read the doctrinal commitments and the practical commitments. And one of the lines was, we take the New Testament for our teachings on meats and drinks, as if suddenly the New Testament changed something.
Hmm.
God hadn't changed. Meats and drinks in the Old Testament is the same as it should be in the New Testament. So it was a subtle thing.
I never heard that.
It wasn't blatant. It was subtle that they were suggesting that there had been a shift.
So you're in subtle sin. Is
I
that what
sin,
you just told me? You're in subtle sin.
I sin subtly, Father.
Gosh.
Will you subtly forgive me?
Yeah. Eh, You know, Barry, I just picked up this book this morning, and I finished reading First Kings this morning. And the reason that I had the ability to do that is because of Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The reason that I could go to the words of Psalm is because of Jews. The reason I could go to the book of John is because of a Jew. So anybody that wants to argue with this thing about, about the Jews not being the Jews and all this stuff, let me tell you, you're right on the edge. And I know I'm not probably not talking to anybody that's listening here because they turned us off a long time ago, so they could go out and maybe order another Arab flag that's called Palestinian. Maybe their little Kifa, whatever that thing is. You know, the people don't listen. I don't care. But if a person today does not stand with Israel and the Jewish people, that's just arrogance to me. I say this once again. If it were not for the Jews, you would not have had a Torah to be restored to. You would not know about a Jewish Messiah. None of this would be, you'd be lost, as Paul said. You would be lost in your sins. And to quote Hanok again, you may not like what we've done with, you may not like how we observe it. Okay, fine, whatever. But at least they have been there through the last thousands of years to uphold a book and a revelation that I could then receive. And so every morning that I pick up this book, I should give thanks to Jews.
Without the continuation of the Jewish people, there would be actually no understanding of Messiah. We wouldn't have your quote unquote New Testament.
Yeah, we wouldn't know to argue about who he is.
Every writer in this book, with the possible exception of Luke, and that can be argued one way or the other, was a Hebrew, if not a Jew. Without this people, we have nothing. So the covenant is still intact. There is one verse in Hebrews chapter 8 people use, and it says, "For if that first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second." See, there he replaced the covenant. Read the next verse. Verse 8 says, "For finding fault with," not the covenant. The covenant wasn't at fault. It says with them.
Mm-hmm.
With them. It was a failure to keep the covenant. He didn't write those people off, but those are the same people Yeshua came to restore and renew and bring a freshness of the covenant to. But he also came to reconcile those who had been cut off from the covenant, to graft them back into the covenant. The covenant hasn't changed. The covenant that we have today is the same exact covenant that Abraham received.
Yeah.
The same one.
I think maybe the problem is in the word them. Again, putting everybody. So you read the verses came out of last week of Matthew chapter 23. It talks about the scribes and Pharisees. David Stern translates it, and I think this is the one place that I totally disagreed with David Stern. It says the Torah teachers. No, they weren't teaching Torah. They were teaching religion.
Mm-hmm.
You ever had anybody, Barry, you're talking to them casually and they say, "Barry Phillips, well, what do you do?" And you say, "Well, I'm in ministry. I'm a pastor," or whatever. And they say, "Oh, Joel Osteen, huh?"
My house is bigger than his.
Yeah. I had somebody do that, and I not too long ago, and I actually looked at the person and said, "You really want to put me in that category? You've known me long enough, and you want to insult me like that?" And the guy said, "Yeah, I apologize. You're right." I mean, we know what it was like to be in ministry in the 1980s. To have somebody look at you and say, "Well, you got an air conditioned doghouse. Yeah, how many prostitutes are you with?" We anybody who was in ministry in the 80s got that. And so now what we're going to do though is we're going to take all the Jews of the day of Yeshua, including Nicodemus and a few others, that were like given disciple status, and we're just going to put them in the category of they're the Jews. Of course, you don't say the Jews, you say the Jews. And then you're going down the road of Martin Luther.
Mm-hmm.
See, the spirit of Martin Luther, of Jew hatred, is alive and well, not only on planet Earth, but in Messianic and Hebrew roots congregations, Christian churches. Be careful.
Be careful.
Be careful who you associate with. You don't want to be standing next to the person when, on the day of judgment, the Almighty looks at the person and says, "And you did what to who?"
To my people.
You decided not to go and hear somebody because he was a Jew? You did explain that to me? I don't want to be next in line.
Me either. Mike, we run out of time.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a second half.
I do too.
Folks, thank you for watching. Appreciate your comments on this.
And by the way, to the person that commented, I meant to do this morning, I didn't do it. To the person that went on and said they were going to contact the radio station we talked about last week and tell them that what was put out on their programming was absolutely unacceptable. Thank you for your action.
Thank you. So we'll take your comments, your questions. Thank you for your viewership, and thank you for sharing this video. We'll see where it goes. Look forward to seeing you again next week, Mike.
You got it, man. Later.
Bye.